Hello, everybody. This is Melinda Russell with Let's Talk Racing Live, and it's Wednesday, November 30th. And if you see, there's a really dark little face. There he is. The face is light, but the area is dark because he's in his truck and he's driving. And so, welcome back to our co-host Brett Timmerman. So, Brett, tell us where you've been and what you've been up to.
Well, I kind of took a little, I think it's been a couple month hiatus from the show. Uh, I got approached for a new career, and uh, it was going to be a life changing event because I'm a traveling repairman now, I guess, service technician. So before I started traveling, I wanted to get everything done at home and just live life a little bit without having any stress of anything. So I just took a hiatus, and I appreciate Melinda allowing me to do that. She just basically took the reins of the show. Basically, what I do now is we work on 3D printers, we sell them, and then we maintain them. So we make all kinds of stuff. One of the big perks of the job is Hendricks Motorsports, NASCAR team, has some of our printers, so I get to fly out there as soon as I get trained up, work on all that stuff. That's been basically hunting, and my new job has been consuming my life. Now my new boss is races the same classes as my kids do. So he approached me and said he wanted me to haul the truck and trailer with all of our carts in it to Oklahoma. So we're going to be racing in January.
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw Adriana post that you were going to be racing, and I wondered what the story was behind it, because you weren't planning to go, but now you are. So your boss has a hand in that.
He does. He's like, I know you always complain about the gas prices and getting there, and it costs you a lot. And he's like, well, if you pull my cart, so long story short, my boss has a plane, and he don't like driving. So he said, if I will do all the driving, he'll pay for it to get there with all of his equipment, and him and his kid are going to fly out. So I don't mind driving, so I'll drive for that.
Yeah, for sure. Because you want, at some point, Taylor, at some point, Brett wants to be on the road racing and sharing Women's Motorsports Network, selling advertising, getting new sponsors for us. But he wants to be kind of the gypsy, where he's always traveling and all consumed with racing. So it's already starting.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm 41 years old, and I've kind of lived a sheltered life just because I had kids early, and so now it's time to enjoy life, and I'm hoping we get to the point where my wife can travel with me. The kids will be growing up, and Adriana will be there, so it'll be good eventually. That's definitely going to get me prepared for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy for you. I'm excited that you're going to get to do that. So stay with us as long as you can. And
yeah, I'll just listen in, and
okay.
All right. If I have any questions, I'll jump in.
All right, just jump over the top of me if you have any questions, because you know me, I'll just keep asking until you butt in. So,
normally I don't get to talk anyways.
Oh, whatever. He sits there, and it's like, you got to let me know if you want to ask a question. So
you have to raise your hand.
You have to raise your hand. That's it. You got to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. So, oh, Taylor, that comes from Taylor being in school. So our guest tonight is Taylor Ferns. I'd heard of Taylor, but she really got my attention the night she raced at Galesburg, Michigan. And that's a little tiny track. And, it was like, oh, I know that name. Why is she here at Galesburg? And there she was racing at Galesburg, beat everybody, beat all the men. They couldn't hold a candle to her. And Galesburg's where my granddaughters raced, my granddaughter's boyfriends raced and stuff. And so to get to see her race that night, and then I've met her, we've met up two or three different times at the same events that we've been to. So Taylor, I know your story, and I feel like we're friends, and I've known you for a while, but for people maybe who don't know who Taylor Ferns is, why don't we start with where you live, kind of what you're up to now. I said you're in school. Why don't you tell people what you're doing? And then follow that up with, how did you get started in racing?
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction, Melinda, and thanks for having me on as well with Brett. So my name is Taylor Ferns. I'm from Shelby Township, Michigan, born, bred, and corn-fed, if you will, in the Metro Detroit area. I started racing when I was 6 years old in quarter midgets. And I kind of just like to say I went up the racing ladder, so to speak, from there. From quarter midgets, I went to bandoleros and then 600cc micro sprints. And then that's when I started getting into the USAC midget stuff with the Kenyan midgets, Ford Focus midgets. I started racing full-size midgets when I was 13 at the tracks that would let me race. And then full-size sprint cars when I was 14. From pavement sprint cars to wing 360 and 410 dirt sprint cars, dirt and pavement Silver Crown cars. And then I also dabbled with in the late model divisions a little bit, and then as well as I raced some ARCA races for Venturinis back in, what was that already, 2013. And yeah, then I took some time off for like 2 to 3 years from like 2016 to 2019. And then I came home from work one day. I work at the Sam Bernstein Law Firm, which is a popular Michigan personal injury law firm. And I came home one day from work in 2018, and my parents surprised me with the same non-wing pavement sprint car that I had when I was 14. Won my first ever sprint car start in it, and from there, like, I had already won like 10 races in that car when I was a teenager. So that definitely was an emotional moment for me because it was so hard being away from racing for that period of time. So yeah, raced with the Auto Value Super Sprint Series, they called at the time, in 2019. Took 2020 off because of COVID. And then where you saw me, Melinda, I raced like 5 or 6 races in 2021, and then kind of back to almost a full-time schedule this past season, racing USAC Silver Crown cars on the pavement, and then with the 500 Sprint Car Tour in the pavement sprint car division. So what quickly started off as being a fun hobby with the family tumbleweeded into this illustrious career, if you will.
Absolutely. So K-Dub, and we are going to have people that maybe ask some questions. So she wants to know a little bit more about the USAC Silver Cup Series, because she's a boat racer and she's involved in boat racing. So she probably doesn't know that much about it. Do you want to explain what the USAC Silver Cup Series is?
Yeah, so the USAC Silver Crown Series, or I got Silver Cup, you can call it.
Yeah, she called it Silver Cup.
Yeah, it's been around for over 50 years now. And what people, I guess, maybe the Silver Crown Series might be infamous for is drivers like Mario Andretti, the Bentonhausens, Al Unser Jr. They all came from Silver Crown Racing before they went to IndyCar. So if you want to look at it from like a tier perspective within USAC, like it's almost like the midgets, the sprint cars, and then the Silver Crown cars. It's almost like the upper echelon, if you will, of USAC racing. They have a 360 cubic engine, in the cars, which it depends on the track. Like some motors will have more horsepower on the dirt than they will on the pavement and vice versa, but they probably have just around 900 horsepower, give or take a few. And what's cool about the Silver Crown cars is they operate by a hand clutch. So with like a traditional midget or a sprint car, you have to lock the car into gear, and a push truck has to push you off in order for the car to get into gear, and then you start off from there. But with the Silver Crown cars, you have a hand clutch. So, like typically my dad will start my car with like a hand starter. And then I'll pull in the clutch, lock it into gear, and then I can take off on my own.
Okay.
So it's definitely like an old school traditional way of doing it, but I guess it's more visible within the Silver Crown series, watching them start off the cars and the cars take off on their own. But Indy cars and Formula One cars, they have starters too, but you just kind of don't realize that. And traditionally, the Silver Crown cars are 100-lap races, with the exception of special tracks, like when we went to Gateway, which is a pavement track this past summer. we raced, I think maybe it was like 80 laps, because it's a 1.25 mile racetrack. So yeah, they're open wheel cars, like just like I said, just under 900 horsepower. And really, there's really nothing like racing a Silver Crown car, I'll say.
Is that your favorite thing to race if you had a choice?
I love Silver Crown. Silver Crown racing has grown on me. When I first started racing Silver Crown cars when I was 16, I was like, oh, I like it, but I really love my sprint car.
Yeah.
So I'll still kind of say like my sprint car is by far my favorite thing to race, whether pavement or dirt. But I am just a racing fan in general. So whatever I can get my hands on and get in and race, that's what I love for that day.
Yeah. So each day it could be a different favorite based on what's available.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I do love Silver Crown racing, and after going off and doing the late model racing and the stock car racing, I always come back to open wheel. Like I really enjoy open wheel racing, and I think it brings a lot of excitement to the fans as well. So
I think it does too. And there's not near enough of that kind of racing in the Kalamazoo Galesburg area. It's more like you were a special event that night at Galesburg when you were there. And so I love open wheel, and there's just not enough of it for me to watch, in person where I live. But so we were going to talk about this, but K-Dub must have done some research because she says, congratulations on being the first, only, highest finishing woman in USAC. Tell us what went through your mind as you came around the final corner and saw the checkered flag.
yeah, well, first off, I was just relieved with Silver Crown racing. Like it's really a race of attrition, so you want to make the 100 laps, right?
Yeah.
So relieved at that point, but then also, I mean, it was like a bittersweet moment for me because I obviously wanted to win the race. And at periods of time throughout I don't know if I had the fastest time out of the entire race, like lap time wise, but I knew that we were obviously one of the quicker cars on the track. And I just felt like after the last restart, I was like, I don't want to say that I gave it away, but I think with the matter of that caution with like 3 laps to go and my tires cooling down, I think that worked more so to my detriment than maybe my favor. Just because like after the restart and I went into turns 1 and 2, like I couldn't come off of turns 2 because my car got tight, which I just had like a lot of wheel into it. But it was really cool because I think from taking the time off, and like last season, I only ran 2 Silver Crown races. So that was really my 3rd race back since I took all that time off. And I think it was just like almost proof in the pudding for me, like how much I'd been working during the off season and what I'm capable of doing in a race car. Like, I think that just opened a lot of people's eyes. I was just like, wow, like Ferns really isn't playing around.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Exactly.
but it just made me want more. Like I knew after that, I was like, okay, I know I can get a Silver Crown like a win here soon, which we didn't get this past season, but I have high hopes for next season. I'm racing the entire Silver Crown schedule, pavement and dirt, which I'm super stoked about. But definitely crossing the finish line at IRP, it was almost a sense of relief, but it gave me like that fire for more.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, I a lot of times ask women, how do they maintain balance? And you're a great one to ask because you're going to law school, you work at Sam Bernstein, which has got to be a very busy job, and now you're going to race full time asphalt and dirt. So how do you manage all of those things? It's not that people can't do more than one thing at a time, but I know that going to law school, you have to be on your toes the best you can be. The San Bernstein Law School, or law firm, I was telling Brett, very well known in Michigan. They advertise a lot. I know they're a very busy firm. They're a big firm. You don't get a job there working if you're just anybody. So you've got to be very, very special and talented already to have that position. And now you're going to be full-time racing. How do you manage all of that?
Yeah, so I will say it's almost like a work of art. I like to joke around and say I should join the circus because I feel like I'm mastering all the juggling. But I think definitely I go by the saying, like, everything happens for a reason. And I mean, obviously, like, it was a hard time for me taking the time off from racing that I did, but I wouldn't have gotten the job that I had otherwise. And have worked so closely with the Bernsteins and a large part of our administration at the firm throughout my operations directorial role. And I mean, honestly, that's what helped give me the funding to get me back into racing. So
Yeah.
I was kind of just bridging two worlds together. And then at the same point in time, when I started back up racing, I don't think it was, or started back up again, I don't think it was anticipated that I was going to be as competitive as I was, like, after taking all that time off. So now it's kind of, again, tumbleweeded into this bigger part of my life, which,
Yeah.
I mean, I like, because I'm obsessed with racing.
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, like, now I'm just more so, like, prioritizing my passions, right? So, like, I'm in law school. I'm just under being a full-time student right now, but luckily I'll take advantage of my intelligence, if you will, because I'm still able to like, balance with missing some class that they allow us to miss, while also being able to travel a lot for my motorsports and still pursue my racing career. And then also work in my job, which thankfully they allow me to work remotely. So I will just say, like, it's just come back to me, like, planning accordingly, scheduling right. And I've really gotten better at telling people no when I can't do something. But obviously when it comes to racing, like, to me, like, that's kind of what I've prioritized the most, with just, like, my schedule, and then just making sure it fits right within my class schedule as well. And then my work I can just take with me wherever.
Yeah.
So definitely, like, if I don't think I can get some sleep in at night, like, definitely sleep on the plane is a great thing.
Right.
Or just, like, I just say it's like a master of overlapping as well. So
Yeah.
overlapping when I can. If I have to work on the plane, connect to the airplane Wi-Fi, and I'll do my work from there. If I'm studying while I'm in the rig on the road,
Yeah.
that's what's got to be done so I can
Right.
pursue what I want to do.
So tell me, where do you go to law school?
Yeah, so I'm a student at Wayne State University Law School in Detroit, Michigan, which I grew up in this area. Wayne State's a well-known university. I actually have my MBA from here as well.
Okay.
So yeah, Wayne, actually were a top 60 school, I believe now, law school, and we just surpassed U of M for top bar passage rate.
Whoa.
So yeah, watch out. I am a big Maize and Blue Wolverines fan, but
Okay.
Wayne Law is definitely on the come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do hear about that. I'm on the other side of the state, but we do hear about Wayne State and that. And so it is a well-known school and law school. So it's interesting to talk to women who have so many things happening, and yet if they really want, so some women are going to be like, well, I can't do that because I've got this or that. But what you're showing is that if you really have a passion for racing and getting your law degree, right, those two things, then you're going to figure out how to make them all work together.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easy to just say, well, I can't do that. Where you're saying, I'm going to find a way for those things to overlap if they have to, so that I can race, which is your passion, law, which has to be also a passion of a different kind, because that's a lot of school expense, etc., to go through if you're not really passionate about it, right? Same as racing, lots of
Yeah.
time and money. And so I love that you are an example of a woman who can figure it all out, and you get to events, because I've been to 2 or 3 events in the last year or so that you and I have both been to. So you make the time to get it all done and do it well, because it's important. And I love that about you, Taylor, and your story for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. So what is the hardest thing that you've had to manage with all of these things going on? What's the hardest thing?
Honestly, I think it all comes back to just minimizing distractions. Because distractions, I mean, that could lead you one way over the other. And like,
Mm-hmm.
because I have like such, like a massive time constraint, like between work, school, racing, I think it's just eliminating those things. Like, I try to stay off social media as much as I can. I've actually kind of been on like a social media break, if you will, like the past couple months, just because I feel like it can suck you in.
Oh yeah.
But at the same point in time, it's also just like making time, like for my school, like sometimes studying, because I'll get so enthralled with my racing stuff. I'm like, oh, like, oh, I can study later or
Yeah.
whatever. But I think with that, that comes also back to minimizing the distractions, right? Like, I know when I last saw you, Melinda, at the Women in Motorsports North America Summit in Charlotte, I actually had been flying back and forth to Charlotte like that previous week. Like, I had to fly home that Sunday so I could make it for class Monday. And then I flew back to Charlotte that Tuesday, had the event, and then the next morning, I flew to Indianapolis so I can make my race in Indiana. And then the next day I flew to Florida so I could make my other race down in Florida. So, with that, I had to have zero distractions because I was just like so in the game with what I was doing. But that also comes back to just making sure that I'm well scheduled and well planned out.
Yeah, and so what kind of a calendar do you keep? Is it on your phone? Where do you, because I had someone, that what his favorite thing to say was, if it's not in your calendar, it's not going to happen. And so how, do you use your phone as your Bible? I will say, your appointments and that, your school. Do you schedule for studying so that you make sure there's time allotted? Because I could get into the racing stuff and it'll be midnight. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, I need to go to bed and not study, right? So
Yeah.
how do you manage your time like that?
Yeah, so it's definitely just as far as like my day-to-day schedule goes, I put everything in my phone. And then also at the same point in time, depending on the urgency, like make sure I set alerts for things. And then every morning when I get up, like my first 5 minutes when I'm laying in bed, I check it to make sure like each day, like this morning I checked, okay, we have our interview tonight, just to make
Yeah.
sure I stay on top of it. But for scheduling, as far as like my studying time goes for school, I really kind of allocate like the next 2 weeks we have finals. So I kind of like each week have had like, okay, this week I'm going to work on trust and estates, my outline for that, next week evidence, so on and so forth. Because I feel like when I write it down, like I'm more prone to stick to it.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
what's my phone on my calendar on my phone is kind of like my Bible.
Yeah. That's kind of what I figured. So
Mm-hmm.
KW says, I love that you're able to juggle your schooling, work, and racing. And on top of that, you are a great mentor and speaker for women in racing. Tell us about your experience at the Wimwood Drive in Charlotte. What is the best thing that you got out of your experience? That's a hard question, Taylor,
Yeah.
because man, there were so many good things. But what did you take away from there?
I know I wish I could have stayed for the second day, but I had to make it that Thursday morning. I had to fly back from my race at Anderson. But from my time that I spent there on that Wednesday, it was honestly so amazing. Um, just from hearing the speakers and their stories. And I honestly, after the first hour of just listening to Lynn and Cindy up there, like it was almost like affirmation to me, like, wow, I feel like I'm serving my purpose in life,
Hmm.
just for like the words of encouragement. And then hearing all the other ladies and men go up there and speak. And then all the supporters that they were able to have that are basically supporting the movement, if you will, like from the sponsors like Mobile One, which
Right.
Mobile One's coming on board and they're sponsoring me next season. So I'm grateful for
Awesome.
that. But at the same point in time, I've realized that I love networking. So
Mhm.
it was so great to see you and then a lot of the people that are involved with our Women in Motorsports group, for the committees that I'm on with that,
Yeah.
because we see each other on Zoom. And so it's hard to we very rarely get to connect in person.
Yeah.
So that was great. And then also just interacting and meeting new people. So I also loved the networking aspect as well.
Yeah, I do too. And you know what's fun for me is, when I first interviewed you, it was, or we talked and we had a story about you in the magazine. We had not met each other in person, and at that event, there were quite a number of women that I had interviewed, either on a podcast or through the magazine, that I actually got to meet in person for the first time. And
Mhm.
you feel like you already know them for sure,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when you get to actually sit down, talk face to face, have lunch, whatever it might be, it just brings everything so much more to life, if you will. That yes, we are in the right space. We are where we're supposed to be. We're doing what life has intended for us to do. It took me a lot of years to figure that out, but
Mhm.
women weren't really involved in racing back in the days when, like, my son was interested in racing.
Yeah.
You didn't even see very many girls in the pit area, much less on the track racing. And
Yeah.
and that was just in the early 2000s,
Mhm.
and 2014, 15, along in there. Slowly but surely, more and more women. And since 2017, when I launched Women's Motorsports Network and the International Women's Motorsports Association, so in those 5 years, the number of women that seem to have come out of the woodwork,
Mhm.
and are participating. But you say, "Oh, I've raced since I was 6 years old," and now you're in your 20s, I would guess.
Mhm.
So you've been out there racing during that time, but there was no place where we were hearing about you. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so now I think that's the other side, is that we women have gotten so much better about being vocal, being present on social media, sharing
Mhm.
what we're doing. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? How have you seen that change?
Yeah, so honestly, when I would say like almost in my prime, when I was in my early to mid late teenage years, like social media was just starting to become a thing. So I was actually having a conversation with my engine builder just yesterday, and he was like, honestly, you were a little bit before your time
Yeah.
because like you were just as great then as you were now. And it's like if social media was a thing then, like you'd be in some other, like you'd be doing something else right now.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. But I
Hmm.
really think that like with the emergence of social media, especially recently, and then like with the additions of the online streaming platforms of the
Hmm.
races like Flow and Dirt Vision and Racing America, I think that brings not even like a brighter spotlight to females in motorsports, but just to racing in general.
Right.
Like there's I feel like so many more people able to tune in to these
Hmm.
races that they wouldn't be able to otherwise, and then also follow up with it on social media.
Yeah.
Um, and then with that, I still feel like when I was younger coming up through the ranks, like normally a lot of the times I was the only female within certain divisions.
Hmm.
But still I feel like to this day, like at least within the divisions that I'm racing, like I'm still the only one.
Yeah.
And, like, even taking the time off from racing that I did, like, I heard a lot when I was younger, like, first female or youngest female or whatever, like, I feel like I have a lot of those titles, but we're still hearing those titles now, and
Hmm.
that's because the proportionality is just so small of females within motorsports,
Yeah.
and then let alone, like, females that are succeeding.
True.
So, I feel like we're still trying to get through, like, that breakthrough point, if you will, because like I look forward to the day that we're not hearing first female to do this or
Me
first female to
too.
do that, because at the end of the day, like I just want to be a racer. I'm not here for a title. So that's what I'm looking forward to. So hopefully with like what you're doing with Women Motorsports Network and then with Women in Motorsports North America, like we'll get to that point
Yeah.
hopefully within my generation.
Yeah, I hope I'm still around to see it, because that's the thing. I went to Eldora a few years ago. I want to say maybe it was 2018. And I had never been to Eldora, and of course, you always hear about the King's Royal, and so my husband and I went, and so we went early because I like to go early and go down into the pit area and talk to the women, and I was shocked that there were hardly any women in the pit area. I met a lady from Australia who's friends with Donnie Schatz's team.
Okay.
And so they were there supporting him, and then he goes to Australian races apparently at some point, or he did.
Yeah.
I met her, but other than that, there were a handful of women whose husbands were racing or doing whatever. But I was really surprised because when you go to really any other drag racing, dirt track, late model dirt tracks, any of those kind of races, there are women, at least some, racing some class. And if they're not doing that, they're helping their husband change tires or do things like that. And in the sprint car area, there just wasn't. And so
Yeah.
I've asked different ones who are in, have raced sprint cars, why is that? Why is getting to, let's say, World of Outlaws or, the top parts racing of sprint cars, why are there no women up there? What's your thought about that?
I really think, and I was going to touch on this about the Silver Crown division as well, but I think it's just because there hasn't been enough visibility of females within those divisions. And then let alone with that, a lot of like successful visibility of females within those divisions. Like still non-wing sprint cars, when I was 14, I was the only gal within the division. Still to this day, I'm the only gal in the division. And I feel like I'm competitive. Like I can run up front with Bobby and Cody and Billy Weiss. Like, but to me, it's just still so surprising. Like, I think the more success that series has and like the more success that I have within that division, like hopefully it'll show younger girls that they can do that too. Because I mean, sprint cars, like with those horsepower to weight ratio of those cars, like, yeah, they are daunting. They're fast and they react like no other. But I hope that like what I'm doing on the track, like makes it easier for the younger female generation to come through. Like it's no different with the Silver Crown division. Like when I first tested a Silver Crown car for Team 6R when I was 15 at IRP, I never even thought really that division would ever be an option for me because there was really no predecessors, like female predecessors before me that really raced Silver Crown cars. Like I think Sandy Eden like made one start, Sarah Fisher made one start, and then I think there was a handful of others, but they really only made one start. And so I was so young, like I never witnessed any of that. And so then when I started racing Silver Crown when I was 16, and then I did that for a few years and then decided to go wing 410 racing and still was like really the only female at the track.
Yeah.
It was just like, I think like the more we see successful females within the division, I think it will be reassuring because with the sprint car and Silver Crown divisions, like it is cutthroat.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that like I can't compete with them because I know I can. So hopefully that brings some ease to people who like younger gals who are coming up through micros or whatnot.
And do you think sponsorship has anything to do with it? Are sponsors harder for you to find, do you think, than it is for the guys, or it's just tough overall?
I think it's just tough overall. Like, I don't think that really matters. Like, the difficulty level of getting sponsorship, like, knows no gender.
Yeah.
And like I said before, it's really just a matter of who you know. Like, I find myself like, I'm going through my Rolodex, emailing people. Like, I really haven't had somebody approach me and say, hey, will you put us on your car? Like, you really have to go out and search and roll up your sleeves and find people. And also like know your worth and what you bring to the table. Like I feel like just my on-track competitiveness like is just as similar as like my off-track professionalism and how I present myself and how I speak. And that makes a big difference too with sponsors too, because they want to make sure that they obviously know that as someone that's marketable. Not only just, I always tell like younger girls too that I mentor, like, okay, all this off track stuff matters, but you have to have the results because We don't want no gimmicks.
Yeah, exactly. And that's true. You have to be able to show what you can do on the track. But it's the whole package, isn't it, Taylor? It's not just on track. It's not how good you can market your sponsor off. And it's the whole package. And it's how you look, how you dress, the kind of words that you speak. All those things put together are what a sponsor looks at, and they look at your social media and see, what are you a negative person? What do you post? What do you do here and there? And if kids think that coming up for interviews, for jobs, racing, whatever it might be, that their social media is not going to be a factor, it is, because they can go back and see what kind of a person you are. And honestly, social media really sometimes, unfortunately, shows the true character of some of the people that are posting.
Yeah, I kind of say social media to me is like a double-edged sword, because it is like that's what sponsors look for, because they want to see like your reach and like your target market as an individual and how you're posting and how you represent yourself on social media. But at the same point in time, it's like a false reality.
Yeah.
Also. So, but it goes back to like that's what gets the sponsors. So just being mindful of what you're posting. And I always like to joke around and I say I try to radiate my positivity.
Yeah.
I know car owners that have approached me. They're like, "Oh man, you're always so positive." I was like, "You have to be. Like, what's the point? Why would I waste my time being negative? Like, on to the next thing."
Yeah, and being negativity breeds negativity, right?
Yeah.
Same as positivity. The more positive you are, the people that you surround yourself that are positive, then it just becomes a habit.
Yeah.
And my son-in-law coaches baseball, so he is a pitching coach. And one of the things he always said and tells his kids, all the way from little kids to big leaguers that come and train with him, is think about your words. Are your words positive? And when you're talking, take out the negative things. It might just be one word. Take that out, and it changes your whole sentence into something positive. And after you get used to doing that, after a while, you don't have to think about it. It's just it's just the way that you are. And that's what we need more of, for sure, especially in racing, and especially on social media. Sometimes I'd like to, and I do, I just delete those people because I don't have time for that. I want to hear the good things. So
no time for toxic energy. Like,
no.
I don't have time for that.
No.
I love like watching motivational speakers and stuff. And I wouldn't say Kevin Hart is a motivational speaker, but Kevin Hart, the comedian, I was watching an interview of his recently, and he said, you know how much time it takes to have like hate in your heart? Like, he was just saying how he doesn't have that time and energy. And I'm like, no one should have that time and energy to like, I feel like people who exemplify and kind of like show things like that, whether it's on social media or their appearance, like, that's not somebody that I want to be around or associated with.
No, I think it's, I'm trying to think. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and one of the guys says, you are a product of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And I've heard other people say that too. And that kind of makes you wake up and look around, and it's like, who am I surrounded by? And then it's like, yeah, maybe I need to make some changes, or maybe not. Maybe the people around you are lifting you up, and that's a good thing. And so we just have to be conscious of that and not get pulled down and then become one of those people, for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. I live by that too. I was actually just thinking of that saying the other day. I was like, do I need to reevaluate?
Yeah. I think every so often we do, have to kind of think about that. So yeah, for sure. So Taylor, when you're racing this year, dirt and asphalt, can you give me an idea of some of the places you'll be going?
Yeah, so I was just looking at my schedule like an hour ago. So I know they've released some of the pavement races so far between the 500 Sprint Car Tour, and they've announced some stuff for the Silver Crown Series pavement wise. So I anticipate that we'll be racing at Anderson Speedway in Anderson, Indiana, a handful of times in the sprint car. Same thing at Berlin Raceway in the sprint car. I know at the Silver Crown car, they announced that we'll be back at Gateway this upcoming August. And we'll be raced on the same day as the Indy cars, so that'll be cool.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, and then we go back to IRP a handful of times in both the sprint car and the Silver Crown car. And then as far as the dirt tracks go, like I'm assuming this hasn't been announced. They'll probably release something at PRI next week, but I'm assuming that we'll go back to the typical dirt tracks like DeCoin and Springfield. I'm sure that they'll do like a PA track, dirt track.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if Terre Haute will be back on the schedule or not. And then I'm trying to think of where Eldora. I'm sure they'll be at the Four Crown, which I'm really stoked about going back to Eldora.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know they actually said Toledo, they're going to race a sprint car race this year, which I'm really excited about that too, because we haven't been back there since like 2019 in the sprint car. And I'm sure the Silver Crown cars will race there as well. So
Yeah.
I'm probably looking about like at 25 races altogether. And my car's in the Midwest, and then who knows, maybe I'll go down to Florida and race a little bit, but
Okay.
we'll see.
Yeah, so Berlin, I like hearing that. That's a little over an hour from me.
Mhm.
So that's a good place, and I love Eldora. I need to make a trip back there, I think.
Yeah.
To check that out, because that's a great place to go watch racing. And so yeah, but mostly it's drivable. You know, as far as where you have to go, you're not going 10, 12, 14 hours away. Most of them from where you are going to be at least manageable, I would think, compared to some.
Yeah, for sure. And we're in the process of relocating my race cars right now, actually down to Indiana, because we had been working out of my dad's shop in Michigan. And so we're kind of refining our operations a little bit, if you will. So it's that we don't just show up to the track and race. There's so much behind the scenes stuff that goes into it. So
For sure.
trying to work on some things to kind of maybe better our program a little bit. And then at the same point in time, I think I may spend the summer in Indianapolis next summer. So we'll see. Maybe that will put an ease on some of my miles on my truck. So
Right, because you'll be way more centered if you're there, and then you will be in Detroit for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I lived in Indiana throughout my summers in high school, and I moved down there after I graduated from high school, and I went down there for my first year at college. I was living down there, and then I ended up moving back when I kind of took my little bit of a racing hiatus. So we'll see. Indiana's basically like my second home.
Right.
So
when you took, I want to read this comment before we get too far in. KW says, you've added your name to a prestigious list of names on the Kara Hendricks Award at such a young age. Tell us what it takes to receive this award and other names on this award. Are you able to tell us about that?
So I don't know as far as like the criteria that like Lynn St. James, and I believe that there were some members from USAC on the board for that, and then a few other individuals. I don't know kind of what they went to as far as like criterion goes, but I know I was 13 when I won that award. So that was pretty crazy. It was definitely unexpected, but I had won a lot that past season and the previous season, and like was really starting to make a name for myself. I know this was kind of before everyone had Facebooks, right?
Yeah.
So really, I think people found out my name by just going to the USAC website, and then seeing Ferns wins again, and things like that. So I just really won a lot that previous season. I think, what was that, maybe like 2009. And then 2008, I became the first female to win a USAC Kenya midget race, which Kenya midgets have been around. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Mel Kenyon. He made a bunch of Indy 500 starts and is like really well known within the open wheel ranks. And so those have been around for a while too. So making a name for myself at a really young age and just winning races. So I'm sure that was like a big factor that they took into account.
Yeah. So when you talk about you took time off, what did you do to like stay? I mean, let's face it, you can't normally take a couple of years off and come back and be successful unless, that would be rare.
Yeah.
So what did you do during that off time? Or is it just that racing comes so much more natural to you that it wasn't as difficult after taking the time off?
So I kind of go by the mantra, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So even when I took that time off, I wasn't racing anymore, so I had so much time to like allocate my energy into other things. So I was like, you know what? I'm a full-time college student. Like I'm going to get all A's. So graduated with a bachelor's cum laude with honors. And then I was able to get my job at the Sam Bernstein law firm. And I mean, I was promoted to my operations director role after a week. So they must have found something that they liked in me.
Uh-huh.
But I just have this innate like competitive spirit to where I'm just going to be the best at whatever it is I'm going to do. But even with that time off, like I felt like I was still racing. Like I was always like looking forward to the day and like taking part in things that would get me back to racing. So it actually came sooner than when I anticipated. Like I thought, man, I'm not going to start racing again until I'm maybe my late 20s to when I can buy my own race car.
Yeah.
And then even when I started back up racing, my dad was like, "Oh, it's just going to be a family hobby. I'm just going to do 5 to 6 races a year," which I'm like, "Okay, as long as I'm racing, you know." But I just took advantage of like the opportunity that I had and was like competitive again right off the bat. Like I think I finished second my second race back, and I finished second to Bobby Santos, and I beat Cody Swanson. And that's after taking 3 years off. I hadn't raced a pavement sprint car since I was 15 at that point in time. And so it's like, yeah, I was physically out of the game, but mentally I never left.
Yeah.
And like I was always like, I'm really big about doing my research. So I do a lot of studying, if you will, before I go to the races. Like I'll watch a lot of videos. I like looking at pictures of the racetrack, and just so I can like get the feel of certain things as far as like the banking goes and stuff. And so I really just kind of put myself in the zone mentally.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because so many times we don't really hear people talk about the mental part of racing, but it's huge. And that's true of any sport. The mental part of being successful in any sport is sometimes bigger than the talent, really. Because if you work hard and you have the right attitude in that, then you can overcome maybe not being quite as talented in one area or another as somebody else, and then wanting it. It's we call it heart. If you want it bad enough, sometimes that can overcome people who things come easier to. And and so I like that, what you just said about that too, about you stayed at it. And so do you do iRacing at all to practice on those tracks?
I honestly don't. I had a iRacing simulator when I was younger, like when I was 14, 15. And I honestly I didn't use it at that time even as much as I did. But now, like, I always feel like, yeah, maybe sim racing. I mean, I'm probably saying this because I don't have one right now. But I always say sim racing is still like, yeah, oh, okay, it'll give you like maybe a little bit of a way up so you can see what the track looks like. But I still feel like nothing beats actual physical seat time in a race car.
Oh yeah.
And so I feel like I can kind of get a grasp of things. I feel like I've trained my mind well enough to like just watching YouTube videos. I feel like it might be something maybe a little bit similar. They may overlap in ways, but I'm probably just saying that because I don't have a sim right now.
Well, yeah.
But like for me, like the big thing is like people think, like I said before, we just show up to the track and race, and it's like, if only people knew how hard I work when I'm not there so I can get there.
Yeah.
Because that is what I'm passionate about. I feel like it's definitely something I could be really successful in. and just being a part of the endeavors that I'm in. Like, I mean, I don't think Mobile One would really be sponsoring me if I wasn't kind of maybe the person that I am, you know?
Right. Absolutely, for sure. So Laura Tucker said, "Is your team a family affair, and who helps out on your car?"
Yeah, so it definitely is 100% a family affair. My dad likes to say he's the truck driver. He drives the rig to and from the track. And he likes to orchestrate things, if you will.
He's the
And then
organizer.
yeah, my dad and then my mom is the team chef. She takes
Okay.
pride in making everyone she'll make her homemade burgers on pit road at IRP. I kid you not. And she's a great cheerleader. And then actually funny story, I got into racing because of my mom's side, which I feel like doesn't happen a lot, but
No.
my mom is a big racing fan. And then my brother and my sister are always there. They'll help out. Both equally, like my sister's really into it as well. They both used to race too, when they were younger. So everyone is very much involved. They're both like my biggest fans. And yeah, I definitely would not be able to do this without them. That is for certain.
Okay. So who's the crew chief?
Yeah, so my crew chief is Kevin Biesacker.
Okay.
I've been working with him for on and off for 14 years now. He grew up from a racing family. His family grew up racing within the USAC divisions, and I believe Kevin's a Bloomington Speedway non-wing sprint car champion. I became affiliated with him because I grew up being friends with Caleb Dalton and Dakota Armstrong. And so we were teammates. We're still teammates now. And so Kevin helps out both myself and the Armstrong boys. So we share Kev.
That's nice. It's good that you share, but for somebody that's been with you that long, he knows you very well. He knows your style of driving and all that. So that's all really good. Then you're not breaking somebody new in, right?
Yeah, and Kevin and I have a great chemistry and we balance each other off really well. Because no one's harder on me than I am on myself. So I'll be like my hardest critic. And Kevin has a way of like if he's critiquing me, like kind of doing it is in an easygoing but constructive way. Like I know if Kevin's getting on me about something, like I need to straighten my act up.
Okay. All
But
right. But
we
he doesn't
definitely
hurt your feelings or make you cry. He
no,
does
but
it in a good way.
yeah, no, but I mean, I feel like I'm a tough gal, but we have a way of understanding each other when I relay to him what the car is doing and so on and so forth. And I mean, I've been working with him for over half my life. So
Right. We didn't ask you how old you were. Do you want to share that?
yeah, I'm 26.
26.
I'll be 27 in a week and a half.
Okay. We'll have to
Yeah.
celebrate at PRI then.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we will.
For sure. Brett's got a question. Whoops, wait, Brett.
No,
There you go.
I'm just pulling into my driveway, and I probably got some family that want to see me. I haven't been home for a few days, so I'm just
Okay.
gonna jump off.
All right. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to your story, Taylor.
Thanks, Brett. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Take care, guys.
Yep.
All right.
Take care.
So, what's your goals? What are your long-term goals for your life? Whether it's racing, being a lawyer, where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so I'll start off with like the short term because I've learned in life like whenever you make plans long term, I feel like there's always God, if you will, throws you a curveball and is like, oh, psych, that's not happening.
Right.
So like within the immediate future, like I intend to compete for the sprint car and Silver Crown Championship next season, which I feel like we can be really contentious with in both of them. And then from there, as far as like my actual like racing goes, I've been trying to network and work with different brands and teams and stuff like that to kind of see what more I can do within motorsports from a driver's perspective. So I don't know, maybe make an Indy 500 start or
wouldn't that be awesome?
yeah, so we'll see. Or I mean, I'm open. I went the stock car route once before because I always thought when I was younger, like that's what I wanted to do was go into NASCAR. So I'm still not opposed to doing that. I feel like I was really competitive in an ARCA car when I was running with Venturinis.
Yeah.
So I would still love to go back that route too. I mean, I'm
Okay.
just a fan of racing.
Yeah.
I always say if I was to have it my way, I'd race with the World of Outlaws, hands down.
Okay.
Um, but aside from that, like with my legal career and whatnot, like I feel like long term, like I'm always going to be in motorsports. So whether I'm practicing as an attorney in motorsports law, working with teams and drivers as far as like
Mm-hmm.
their contracts go or mergers and acquisitions, I think like that's definitely going to be in the cards for me, or being a car owner or team
Yeah.
owner, which I am a team owner right now. So I race for myself. But,
Okay.
whenever I do decide to hang up the helmet, which I don't even wanna think about, but when that time does come again, I'd like to have put somebody else in my car too and see what they can
Yeah.
do. So,
So
we'll
team
see.
owner for sure, kind of long term, and it's interesting because so you're a driver right now, but and so many times when I interview girls, they want to be, especially the younger they are. You're a little bit older in the fact that you kind of know how things go. And
Mhm.
so, you've got definitely a plan B when you're done racing to be an attorney or be an attorney while you're racing. But
Mhm.
I like to be able to share with younger girls, especially, that you don't have to just be the driver. There are so many opportunities in motorsport,
Yeah.
and a lot of people probably never even thought about that teams have attorneys or that
Yeah.
they need attorneys for mergers. Look at all the mergers that have happened in NASCAR.
I know.
And they have like Rick Weir now. He's going to work with um, Brad Keselowski's team, Roush, whatever it's called. I don't know.
Yeah.
They've all merged so much I can't keep them
Yeah.
straight. But that doesn't just happen with a handshake, you know.
Mhm.
There's an attorney somewhere drawing up paperwork for all of that. And so
Right.
you can most definitely keep your love of motorsports and your love of law
Mhm.
together, and you'd have the best of both worlds, wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, for sure, and I'm glad you pointed that out because I like to talk about this a lot because when I was 17, like, younger, like 16, 17, 18, like, I never thought there was anything else for me within racing other than being a driver. Like, because I was always in that mindset, like, "Oh my gosh, if I can't race, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life," like, so on and so forth, and
Yeah.
then when I came back and then I became involved with Women in Motorsports North America, and then I met Beth Peretta, and then all the other individuals within our group, it was like, there's so much opportunity for
Hmm.
me. And then otherwise, I mean, I
Right.
obviously still want to race right now while I can, but I had when I sat to take the LSAT, a light bulb had went off in my head and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I could be." Alan Miller, who's a well-known motorsports attorney,
Yep.
was my attorney. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I could, like, be like Alan and
Yep. Yep.
do what he does." And then so after that, like, that was kind of my whole purpose of law school. So and
Yeah.
I wasn't even racing again at that point. So, yeah, it'll be cool to see, like, how life unfolds, right?
It will. And I've kept track of you for a while, and then we finally got to meet, and I actually got to see you race, which was cool. And we'll our paths are crossing more and more, which
Mm,
is great because I love that part.
yeah.
And so who knows what the future holds for you, Taylor, because you have you're smart, you're talented, you're confident, you're a beautiful young woman. And so there's so many things open and available for you that it'll be exciting for me to watch your path and see what happens over the next few years. And definitely I'll be able to get to come and watch you race this year because
Yeah,
you're going to
thank
be
you.
racing not that far from me on several occasions.
Yeah.
I typically print out the schedules. When I know you're going to be in a certain series, I'll print that
Mhm.
schedule out and then I put the races that are close to me in the book, and it'll say Taylor at Berlin. And so then I'll
Mhm.
know where you're going to be. So that's going to be fun to come and watch this summer.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, you'll have to be at Berlin, and then if Toledo's not too far of a drive.
Not bad. It's not.
Yeah.
I've never been there either. So,
Oh, I think
going
it'd be
to new tracks is also always on my bucket list.
yeah, you'll have to let me know. Let me
I
know
will.
when you
I will
decide to
for
come to Vegas.
sure. Absolutely. Well, Taylor, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to share tonight about yourself or your racing or anything at all?
Um, Not re at the end of the day, like, I feel like I am kind of the one that does the interviews and so on and so forth, and so but it's not just me within my team, right? Like, there's so much more to, like, why I can go to the track other than just myself. Like, I like to say there's no I in team, and
Yeah.
Rome wasn't built in a day. And so, like, outside of me, like, my family's really involved, and we highlighted on that, and Kevin, and my like other crew guys that come and help me at the track, like my spotter,
Yeah.
and we have like extra hands as well. And so I wouldn't be able to do any of this without the help of them and my sponsors, like the San Bernstein Law Firm,
Yeah.
Mobile One, Beast, Stanton Racing Engines, Indy Race Parts, 8 Track Entertainment, Motorsports Safety Group, D Ford's Bar and Grill. The list goes on and on. And so, like, I'm just grateful to still be in the position that I am, doing this, competing at the level that I
Mhm.
am. And there's no I in team.
For sure. And all those people, whether they're big or small sponsors, it doesn't matter. It all adds together for the
Hmm.
success of the team together. And that's what's cool. People don't have to be they don't have to sponsor you in a NASCAR race to be
Yeah.
effective to help you be successful. And so
Yeah.
every little bit helps and adds up to get you on the track. And I always encourage people that they don't think about how early you get to the track. If you're the driver in the team, what time do you get to the track? 4 or 5, 6 hours ahead of the race time or more.
Hmm.
What all the things you have to do to prepare just to get out there that night, not
Yeah.
counting all the things that you did during the week, right? And I
Right.
always encourage people, ask your favorite driver or find a driver at a track you like to go to and say, "Hey, can I come and be your guest pit person, crew member for the night? I'd like to see what you have to do to get your
Yeah.
car on the track." And I think if people saw what it takes, how much it costs to get in, how much your pit passes are, how much your tires are, how much the gas is, how much money do you have to bring to the track that night just to race maybe 100 laps, or maybe not even
Yeah.
100 laps, they would have
Right.
a better
There,
appreciation for the sport.
oh yeah, 100%. And a lot of there's so much. I always say like there's so much like laborious commitment, monetary investment, so on and so forth that everyone, like not just me, but like my entire team puts into doing this. That I'm like, man, if I can't go to the track, like and know mentally that we have a chance to win or compete up front, like I don't even know if it's worth it to go because of how much we spend to do this and just
Mhm.
all the commitment it takes, not just for me, but everybody else.
Right.
And a lot of these guys, I know some guys, I will never allow somebody to come help me out and just volunteer, but I know that there's people that will just come and volunteer their time and bust their butts.
Mhm.
And some people will come and bust their butts and just get work for peanuts. And so
Yeah.
there
Or
I think like in Victory Circle they should interview the crew chief or something too.
yeah, I agree with you too. And there's lots of people who will be, "I'll come and help you if you just pay my pit pass."
Yeah.
So, they'll come and help my granddaughter, and my son-in-law pays the pit pass, $30 or whatever it is. And those people are invaluable.
Yeah.
An extra hand to even just grab tools or do whatever or change a tire. And I just think that so many race fans, young and old, new and old, don't really understand what it takes to put that car on the track. And I don't care if it's a front wheel drive car that looks like it just came out of the junkyard or the most beautiful sprint car or NASCAR or whatever. It still takes a lot of time and money. And I think if people were more appreciative of what it takes to do that, there'd be a lot less negativity on social media.
Yeah. I know it's so toxic.
It is.
It's
It
so
is.
toxic.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for being on. I love talking to you. I can sit and visit with you for hours because I love visiting with you, but I know we both have
Thanks.
things that we should be
Yeah.
doing. And good luck on your finals over the next 2 weeks. I'll see you at PRI for sure.
Thank you.
And have a good week. And thank you again so much for being here with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So Taylor Fern, she's one of my very favorite people. Not only is she from the great state of Michigan, which has nothing to do with it, but I just love her commitment, and she's just an all around good person. And those are the gals that I really like to connect with. Um, she maybe is one of my 5 that I want to keep in my close circle because those are the kind of gals that are going to go somewhere and really make a name for herself even more than she's done. And I just love following her and watching what she's doing. So make sure you find Taylor Ferns on social media, just Google her and know more about her. And then when she starts racing in the spring, we'll try to put her schedule out there so that everybody can kind of give her a follow. And if she's racing close by, you should go and watch her and tell her you saw her story on here. And we just love our women in motorsports. So Taylor, I just appreciate your time. I know it's a busy time when you're going to school and working and all that. So I appreciate that Brett stepped in tonight for a little bit, even if he was just listening in, but that's okay. He'll be back very soon, probably right after the holidays. We're going to put the hammer down and see if we can't get him to come back on a weekly basis. We've got some fun things going on. I'm working on the courses that we're going to do, the little short 45-minute to 1 hour courses that are going to be coming up. And there'll be more information about those as the time gets closer in January when I'm going to launch those. But those will be fun little classes to take, and there'll be some interaction with other people in the class, which will be a really fun thing too. And so I'm working on those. I'm making crafts. It's Christmas time, and I like to send things to people that are on my show or that do nice things for me. So I'm making magnets. Just a woman who loves racing, and that's a magnet. I'm just doing all kinds of fun stuff. It's cold here in Michigan. I think we had almost 2 feet of snow a couple weeks ago. It's all gone. There's a little bit of snow flying tonight, but with winter here and Christmas coming up, I'm doing a little bit of crafting and getting ready for the holidays. And then January, gosh, it'll be coming soon, and the Daytona 500 will be starting. And gosh, where does the winter go? Hopefully it goes quick. Excuse me, because I'm not a fan of cold weather and the snow, and I'm in Michigan for the winter. So we're going to make the best of it as we can. So thanks everybody for being on. If you want to share the link to the show, feel free to do that. If you'd like to receive a free copy of our magazine to your email, send an email to me at iwmanation@gmail.com and just say, hey, I'd like to get your magazine. So do that, and then we'll be back next week. We're scheduling people for 3 of the weeks in December. We're going to take a couple weeks off near the end of the year, and then we're going to gear up and do some more things and some fun things starting in 2023. So have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you soon.